Next month promises to be a crucial one for Malaysia. After nearly 6 years in power, the Prime Minister, Abdullah Badawi, stands down. The move will effectively hand power of the ruling National Front coalition and therefore the job of Prime Minister to his deputy, Najib Razak. In the midst of all this, Malaysia is grappling with a deep economic crisis, and its opposition leader is awaiting trial on allegations of serious sexual assault made by a former male aide. He denies all charges. In a moment, we'll be speaking with the opposition leader, Anwar Ibrahim. But first, our Malaysia correspondent, Robin Brandt, looks at his often turbulent career.
Once Malaysia's Deputy Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim is now the leader of the opposition. In the 10 years in between, he went to jail, but was later cleared. He was also banned from office. His return to prominence has been nothing short of a political resurrection. Now Anwar Ibrahim is at the helm of a coalition which nearly unseated the government. Winning unprecedented support at last year's general election forced a humiliated Prime Minister to agree to leave office early. But 2008 fizzled out for the opposition. It lost momentum after it failed to deliver on a promise that government lawmakers would swap sides. Now Anwar Ibrahim has to deal with another threat to his own survival. A trial date has been set for July, when he will face renewed allegations of sodomy, illegal in Malaysia. They were made by a former male aide. The 61-year-old says they're false and part of another conspiracy to derail his bid for power.
Robin Brandt, BBC News, Kuala Lumpur.
Anwar, very welcome to World News Today.
Thank you, Liz.
You heard in that report that fizzled out is what is described. After your so-called political resurrection, your party and your allies seem to be losing momentum.
On the contrary, we've been winning comfortably the few by-elections that have taken place since then.
You lost one?
No, we have not lost any in the by-elections.
Well, one is disputed.
The one is disputed is actually a case in court, where the election court ruled in our favor, but overturned by the federal courts. But courts, as they are known in Malaysia, does not surprise us very much.
But there are a number of crucial by-elections coming up just after the new Prime Minister, Najib Razak, takes over. You've long warned that a number of lawmakers were going to switch sides, but that just hasn't happened.
It has not happened for a number of reasons, because the Prime Minister refused to have any dealing with us, no discussions. We wanted to table a motion of non-confidence. This was summarily rejected. We are not talking about parliamentary democracy that you understand, but we'll have to deal with it. But what is important is, when he goes to the people for a vote, the vote is convincingly with the opposition.
Now, you've also been accused of putting politics before the country's interests because you're not backing a massive stimulus package that's been put before the House. We've seen in the United States and Britain, often these things have bipartisan support because so deep is the crisis, and yet you're not supporting efforts in Malaysia.
We initiated a bipartisan discussion. It was rejected outright in a very arrogant manner by Najib, the Deputy Prime Minister. We did propose that we should have a series of meetings to consider. Now, we looked at this stimulus package. There's nothing new. It is not a question of funding. It's a question of systemic change that is required. The country has lost confidence because institutions are known to be blatantly inefficient and corrupt. Unless you change the institutions of governance, independent judiciary, free media, transparent manner in dealing with contracts, you don't just award contracts to your cronies. Look at this 60 billion ringgit package. You still use the same affirmative action based on race. You still continue with the billions of dollars of negotiated tender. You apportion a major funds, sums of money to the government and public sector. There's nothing done to help regain public trust and the confidence in the institutions, including the police. Murder cases, corruption.
That's long-term change, isn't it? Malaysia, the economy needs help now, and therefore a huge amount of money is going to be pumped in. Isn't the important thing to address the short-term crisis than to try to work for the long-term solutions you're talking about?
Both. We are dealing with both. Short-term proposals have been made. We responded to the proposals, but short-term does not mean that you should award contracts to your cronies without going through a tender. Short-term does not mean that you should discriminate the marginalized and the poor in the country, in our country, or just insult the intelligence of the minorities and marginalized groups.
Well, indeed, you, of course, have a bit of experience. You were the finance minister during the last big financial crisis in 1997. You ended up being sacked because of it, your battles with Mahathir Mohamad. But when you look at, for example, issues like rising unemployment, big issue, 55,000 Bangladeshi workers are going to lose their rights to work there. Will Malaysians take up those jobs?
Well, the decision initially was to award or provide certificates or permission granting them the right to work. Through what? Through corrupt agents and agencies among supporters of the government. Now we have massive retrenchment. They have no choice. But I think they should do it in a humane manner. You cannot treat foreign workers as slaves. And this is a fundamental issue that we have to address.
Now, you obviously want to take part politically, economically in your country, but you've got this massive controversial trial coming up. Is it going to thwart your ambitions?
Well, whether it's going to be a fair, free trial, independent trial process is another question. These are all scurrilous attacks on my character.
But they don't go
without
away.
Evidence. They don't go away because you have the same coterie of rogues who decide, either the police chief or the attorney general and the deputy prime minister. People associate this guy who made this claim as my aide. He is, and in evidence, an officer associated with the deputy prime minister.
You think you'll win eventually?
Well, we will win because, God willing, we have the facts, and we have the people with us, the Malays, the Indians, including the controversial murder of an Indian in police custody, the Chinese, the Dayaks, the Ibans, and I believe, and therefore I have full confidence that the people will be supporting the reform agenda.
Anwar Ibrahim, thank you for joining us.